Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Manhattan DD Council. And this is our last meeting of 2023. So we will get started with announcements. And if you have an announcement to make, if you would just use the raise hand feature. Jay?
Good morning, Jay Kleinman from LifeSpire. We have behavior management, parent training in Manhattan. So we can send in a behavioral intervention specialist, teach parenting strategies, your management techniques. If you're interested in referring someone, I'll put my contact information in the chat. Thanks.
Thanks, Jay. Wendy? You're muted.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was trying to find my way back to it. Good morning, everyone. Wendy DeLeon from ADAPT Community Network. Just wanted to let everyone know that ADAPT Community Network offers a variety of services, including family reimbursement, housing advocacy, home modifications, overnight respite, day-hab, com-hab, health services, children's services, free educational workshops, and believe it or not, the list just goes on. Our staff is also available to do presentations on a multitude of topics. So please contact our information and referral service called Project Connect at 877-827-2666 or email projectconnect@adaptcommunitynetwork.org to learn more. I also wanted to mention that we do have 3 workshops coming up through our Family Connect parent workshop series. We have on Thursday, January 11th from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Autism Speaks Resources and the Autism Speaks Response Team. Also, Thursday, January 18th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. There's guidelines for determining the need for a one-to-one aid. And lastly, on Thursday, January 25th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., we have a free webinar on summer options for young people with disabilities. I'll put all the information and the links to these workshops in the chat.
Thanks, Wendy. Doris?
Morning, everyone. My name is Doris Kahn. I'm the Outreach Coordinator for New York State Institute on Disability. And for Manhattan individuals, we have reimbursement. We have openings for reimbursement. And for more information, contact Jackie Tripodi at 929-202-1115, or you could email her, jtripodi@nicetinc.org. I'm going to put that information in the chat. I want to wish everyone a happy holiday and a happy new year.
Thanks, Doris. Alana?
Hi, good morning. How is everybody? I am coming here from OHELB Cesaro. For Manhattan, we have money in family reimbursement. In other boroughs, we do have availability in Community Hab and a few residential opportunities. So you can reach us at Access, and I'm going to put all the information in the chat.
Thanks, Alana. Colin?
Apologies, my desktop doesn't have a camera, so I'm not on camera right now. So YI Crisis Intervention is accepting referrals for Queens and Manhattan. We currently support with behavior management, counseling, and also connecting to other services and support. I will put the information for both Manhattan and Queens in the chat. And right now we also have openings for our Parents with Special Needs program, in-home behavior management, and Manhattan Social Skills Group. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me through the chat or the email phone numbers provided. I will also attach the flyers in the chat. Thank you, everyone, and hope you have great holidays.
Thank you. Paola?
Good morning, everyone. Paola Martinez Boone, the New York Lawyers for the Public Interest. I just put in the chat our new think that we have done a report about crisis and special education regarding students classified with emotional disabilities. I encourage everyone to read it. It's long, I know, but it's a lot of pictures in it as well. It took us like about a year to put it together. So I hope that you read it, and if you have questions, feel free to call us. It's a group of us that work on it. We are proud of the product, and hopefully it helps students with emotional disabilities to get better services from New York City Department of Education. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Then we will move on. Well, by way of city news announcements, the 5 borough chairs have recently started to meet with New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene to start to look at the local government plan. And also, they are very much aware of their need to be here at our council meetings, and they are looking to join us back once again, hopefully the beginning of 2024. So we'll move on to state news. Sam?
Good morning, everybody. So James is double booked, so I'll be presenting in his stead. So regarding the anti-stigma campaign, so as you guys know, the Look Beyond Anti-Stigma Public Awareness campaign is in full speed ahead. We will be using public forums, social mass media, internet, radio, regular print advertising in an effort to educate the public about developmental disabilities and highlight the positive ways people with developmental disabilities contribute to their state and communities. The paid media portion of the campaign began this month, and it will be running throughout the spring. So, hope you guys are able to catch some of those. Regarding the OPWDD strategic plan, OPWDD has recently finalized our annual report for 2023, and it will be released sometime this winter. I don't have a specific date as yet. The annual report will be shared on our website, and it will also include a plain language and translated versions. So it's essentially going to provide updates on the progress we've made this year in 2023 towards achieving the goals that were set out as part of our strategic plan, the goals and objectives. And we're going to include updates on key projects that are related to growing and strengthening our workforce and updating our system to better meet the needs of the public. In addition, as part of the unwinding the federal public health emergency, there are some new ADMs that were recently issued. There is an ADM related to community rehabilitation and residence requirements, which updates the existing requirement for ComHab-R services. It indicates that individuals living in certified residences may receive ComHab-R services either inside the residence or outside the residence, depending upon the needs of the individual. There's also ADM 21 ADM 03R, which is for the remote delivery of waiver services. This ADM describes the requirements for using technology to remotely deliver the services under OPWDD's Comprehensive Home and Community-Based Services Waiver. So these services are DayHab, ComHab, pre-vocational services, SEMP, pathways to employment, support broker, and respite services. There is another ADM that was recently published as well. That is 23 ADM 08 for community rehabilitation and residential service documentation. This ADM outlines requirements about the community habilitation services. So for example, it includes information like where the ComHab may be delivered and how it is authorized and how to document the service delivery for reimbursement. And the final ADM that was released was 06 ADM 01R, and that is related to Group DAHAB's service documentation. It revises and replaces an earlier ADM and includes edits to reflect that on November 11 of this year, when the COVID-19 Appendix K authority ended. DAHAB services can no longer be provided in IRAs, community residences, or family care homes. People who require in-residence services may still qualify for in-residence community habilitation residential. So with the exception of the public health emergency flexibilities related to day services ending on November 11th, OPWDD providers of DAHAB services, along with the support of CCOs, had to transition all individuals back into allowable and appropriate day services by November 11th of this past year, of November 11, 2023. In order to help our agency identify the level of unmet need, providers of DAHAB and care coordination organizations are participated in a data collection effort through Choices. Providers who provided DAHAB services, whether it be site-based, supplemental, or without walls, or site-based pre-voc services, just a few days ago to submit the required information. We have been following up with the providers to ensure that they have submitted it in a timely manner. And care coordination CCOs will receive training on their data entry requirements. And I'm sorry, they had the opportunity to receive training on data entry requirements, and this was provided with sufficient time so that they can assist the providers in their data collection. Let's see what else. I don't really have as many updates. It's kind of been a little slow on our end in terms of any new updates. But I remember last time there was a question regarding Guidehouse, the survey, and when it would become available for public comment. So the survey developed by Guidehouse is available on our website for providers and those with lived experience to provide insight into the services that are under consideration. So I will be providing the link in the chat so that you guys can complete the survey if you are so inclined. We really encourage you to participate, because that gives us a more robust understanding of what the needs are and what the concerns are that are on the minds of many. Okay.
Jackie, you had a question?
Yes, I just want to make sure, Sam, that I understand this. So people who live in residences can get community habilitation, but not where they live. So that means that they have to walk out the door and be in the community?
No, they can receive ComHab R services in the home. They can continue to receive ComHab R services in the home. They just can't receive day habilitation services in the home.
Oh, it's day. Okay, got it. Thank you.
All right.
Yes.
And then let's see what else. So also the HCBS waiver renewal application will be submitted to CMS by April 2024, and this is to seek continued authority for another 5-year period, effective October 1st of 2024. Let's see. So for the HCBS rules setting, the HCBS settings rule compliance. So full compliance with the federal HCBS settings regulation was required as of March 17th of this year. On October 30th, CMS gave New York State final approval for its statewide transition plan. regarding compliance with the settings requirements outlined in the HCBS final rule for Medicaid beneficiaries who receive waiver services. While it was included in the approved statewide transition plan, the New York State and OPWDD requested CMS for a corrective action plan on standards related to community integration and employment, requires subsequent engagement with CMS to establish details and a finalized timeline. With regard to the corrective action plan, OPWDD is asking for additional time up until July 1st of 2024 to come into compliance regarding ACBS standards for community integration and employment opportunities for people with developmental disabilities. The COVID-19 public health emergency greatly affected these areas.
What were the rules?
Sorry?
You said that we have to come into compliance, but what is compliance? What do we have to do?
I can send you the link regarding that. I think it might be a little dense for me to kind of like go into the details, but I can certainly put into
Can you give
the
an
chat.
overview? So I could just,
Sorry?
can you give an overview?
So it might be better just for me to put it in the chat, okay? Really
Okay.
quickly.
It,
And the,
a lot of it is very extensive.
Okay. Fine. I wanted to put it in the minutes, but okay. I won't.
We'll
I wasn't being obstructionist.
No,
I'm
no,
sorry.
it's fine. It's fine. It's
Yeah.
just like, it's just the answer was like, we're going to, I was like, I don't even know what it's referring to. So I didn't know if I'm the only one, or maybe other people also didn't know what it was referring to. So I was like, what are the rules?
Okay, I'll try to do a little
Okay, and then I'll look
brief.
through it and try to summarize. Okay, great. Thank
Okay.
you.
And then finally, we have the supportive certified housing grants. So this is a grant where people who are in supervised settings who don't really need that level of support can be transitioned into a supportive setting because that is where they would do best in, essentially. So we are pleased. Oh, I'm sorry, was somebody saying something?
I was being, yes, but I will hold it.
Okay. So we just wanted to say that we are excited to report that the first supportive IRA under the supportive certified housing grant is going to be opening soon on Long Island. I know this is New York City, but I just thought I should highlight this. And it's a new IRA operated by Free. And it will support 2 people who will transition from a supervised IRA setting into a supportive. We have these supportive housing grants all throughout the state, and we are in Region 4. We do have a number of them that we are in the process of making a reality. We're continuing to work with our provider agencies to help them fulfill their proposals as submitted and approved for the supportive housing initiative. And that concludes my presentation.
Ellie?
Yeah, who determines who's ready to go into supported housing from an IRA? How is that done?
So it's the provider agency that is providing the supervised IRA settings will work within their own programs to identify individuals that they believe would be better supported in a supportive setting as opposed to supervised. And I know that their provider agencies regularly communicate with the circle of support for the individual, whether it be only the care manager or the individual themselves and or the families. So this is a decision that is made internally within the agency in
Based on
consultation
what?
with the.
Based on
Based-
what? What kind
based
of
on-
evaluation that, we don't have any standardized evaluation that anyone can understand at the moment.
Well, oftentimes they take into account the abilities of the individuals. We have not many, but we do have some individuals who reside in a supervised setting, but yet every day they go to work instead of necessarily day programming. They have an income and they are coming home to a setting that, for all intents and purposes, they don't need that level of support. They can do quite well in a supportive setting. that is able to just give them the light touch of supervision in terms of maybe medication administration or whatever the case may be, so that they can continue to live successfully, but in the least restrictive setting as possible.
Sam, I get
I'm
confused
biting my
sometimes with all the
tongue.
different, well, the different models out there. Is the one you're talking about, that's a certified supportive?
It's a certified supportive. This is
It's
not
not-
uncertified. It's not the uncertified.
It's not the
Yeah, it's not
it's
what
not
what used to be
subsidy
called
ISS.
ISS, or what's currently called housing subsidy.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Ellie, was I able to at least answer some part of the question for you?
No, but that it's not your fault, so I'm not going to take it out on you. It's just incredibly frustrating that there is no criteria other than this loosey-goosey thing that, oh, they can, it's like saying, for instance, this is personal. It's like saying that everyone should have their own room. And yet, if you ask my daughter, she loves living with a roommate. It gives them both motivation to get up in the morning, as opposed to sitting there talking to herself, telling her, which she does anyway, but, telling herself what to do and how to get up and whatever. So the idea that, everyone's better off on their own is not valid. And so
it's not that we're saying everyone is better off on their own.
But in the least supervised, all that stuff.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that, my argument is not with you, so don't, and
okay.
it is with OPW because it just never hits the nail on the head for a lot of us, they put out these proclamations and yet they don't have the criteria to make the evaluations. Because because nothing, never mind. I'm sorry, I'm just.
Well, like I said, we are not entering into these lightly. We have to ensure that the person's needs will be met. And, the families are often involved in the conversations. And if the individual, he or herself, is able to communicate their wants and needs, they can certainly do that as well. And that's taken into consideration. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Ellie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like, in a way, you feel like we need more 24-hour support for individuals because there's so many more out there, and there's only seems to be things coming out for more supportive.
Right.
That's what I feel like.
That's a lot of it.
Is right. Yeah. You're saying, I just putting it out there for people to hear, because
part of it is
there are many people who could benefit from supportive, but there are so many more who you feel need more.
Right. And if they move somebody out, it's not like the bed stays open so somebody else can come in that's appropriate. They're going to get rid of the whole thing. So, the goal in OPW land is to save money, and
I can say on the
no
other
matter
side,
how you want to.
and I could say on the other side that part of the reason why we're doing these supportive residences is because there's been a great push from stakeholders saying that there's insufficient number of supportive opportunities. So, while I understand that some may feel that there's insufficient supervised, we also have another group that feels like, we need more supportive opportunities. Not everybody requires supervised. So this was a method by which we tried to, listen to the feedback provided and, implement some opportunities for those who felt that a supportive setting would be better suited for some of our individuals.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Do you have actual statistics and data on what the need for supportive and what the need for supervised is?
I wouldn't say I have it offhand. There's been a push for a similar type of data. I don't believe we have that currently available. But you're not the first to ask that question. And I'm sure there'll be many more who continue to ask, but we don't have that level of data that is readily available even for us.
But so do you have any data on this question of what the need is?
I currently don't have access to such data.
I don't want to point out, it's obviously Ellie's point is valid, like you're making supervised versus I mean, supported versus supervised based on no data, right? There is a philosophy of reducing the level of support for people, which is very, very baked into OPWDD right now. And there are people who strongly feel there should be more supervised, especially for people who have lower level of independence. And there is, I think, a large community of people who feel the drift towards assisting the more independent is wonderful, but not if it's at the expense of the truly higher needs people. So this is what you're hearing right now, is a lot of anguish about people who have higher needs not getting addressed. And
Okay.
there's no data to support any decision making.
Okay, that's
Hi, this
noted.
is Richard Bosch at IAC. And I could just throw in the history of all of this because I was at the beginning of what was known as the Needs Assessment Survey, the DDP, which became the DDP-4, which there is, and still there, I believe, is data of number of people needing. What you do have now is the CROW list, Community Residential or Certified Residential Opportunities list, where people can get on, I think what most people call the waiting list. The problem with supportive, until this initiative, and I have to go back and look at what's involved, but until this initiative, there was never enough support for supportive people. If people wanted to move from certified supervised residence into a supportive, the support and the staffing just dropped off. There was no like transitioning into that setting. And it's something we were arguing at IAC and the other provider associations. You need a more person-centered approach where person eases into supportive. And I believe, again, this initiative that Sam's talking about is one that created more support to move. But there is data. Kathy Kelly was part of the DDP-4 initiative. And over a period of, let's see, it started in 94, so almost 20 years, even as residential capacity grew, there was always about 6,000 people on that waiting list. And you had people like when Kathy Broderick was in charge of the regional office, she knew every person individually somehow and went through that list to see how many people were really ready to move, how many people were just maybe put on that list for the distant future, how many needed immediately. So I'm not sure where that data is now, but I would say there's always been 6,000 people in New York City.
Who were they assessed by, though?
I'm not really sure where that number was derived from. I can't speak to the veracity of that statement. I can't say anything. If that's the number that you would like to indicate, that's
I have a question
but
about that. I have a question about that. Not to say I think supportive is great. I started that program in my own agency, but who's assessing them? That Ellie, you're on mute, but she's agreeing. That I mean, I'm not saying it could just be a parent saying, I think they're higher functioning, but the agency doesn't know them, and then the person doesn't succeed in supportive. There's so many factors. So I do think it's a nice program to have someone graduating from a 24-hour residence, because then in the agency themselves, they can see what's needed in order for a person to live in a supportive. I think that's wonderful.
well, you know, as you
Are
know,
there's really
there's
6,000 people? I don't know.
as you know, there are annual life plans. There are regular meetings that are held between care manager, circle of support, and the service provider, which includes residential. And we certainly would hope that a provider that has been providing residential services to an individual for however many years would be well versed enough on an individual to make an assessment as to whether or not their needs are being met in whatever setting that they're in. So these are not decisions that are being made blindly about who would be better suited for supportive opportunities versus supervised opportunities. In addition, there is a review of the psychosocial, psychological, physical, and just an overall understanding of who the person is, whether it be for supportive, supervised, or an ICF setting.
Margaret, you've been waiting patiently.
Yeah. I was thinking along the lines of what Richard raised. It used to be that supportive had limited number of staff support hours that you were allowed to provide. And they were slim. I forget what it was. What was it, Kathy or Richard? Was
Like 50
certain number
hours.
of hours a
It's
week
like
that
50
they were
hours.
limited
It's very
to.
little. It's very little for the week.
It was very little. So
It's
has
very
that
little.
changed, Sam? Because there's been talk for years now of increasing the numbers of allowable support, that people could receive in supportive.
As far as I know, I
So
don't,
it never happened.
I can't really say how many years ago the numbers are from, but I would say that it is a very limited level of staffing.
Yeah, well,
because
that's really sad to hear.
Well,
Because
but
it's
we have-
been
but we
under
have-
active discussion for such a long time, for years.
But we have many providers and many supportive programs that, that's all that's really needed. And as you guys know, DQI regularly goes out and surveys the home. So it's not just feedback that we're getting from just the provider. We actually have quality controls in place to ensure that the person is being, their needs are being met. And, we've also had opportunities where, as part of these surveys, as part of feedback that we're getting from care managers or from the provider agency, they've identified, this person lived in a supportive setting, maybe a health incident happened, or maybe it's just a natural part of getting older, where providers are and care managers and DQI is highlighting to us the needs of individuals that, although they did well in a supportive setting, that it's now time to transition them to a more supervised setting. And we have been able to assist those providers and those individuals into transitioning into a setting that is best suited to support their needs, whether it be for medical reasons or whether it be part of just a natural part of getting older.
Well, the discussions that happened were that there would be many more people who could take advantage of supportive if there were more flexibility in the hours.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, and Sam, you're correct.
And then
And
we'd
the-
only have to manufacture more workers, because we don't have enough to support what's going on right now. So why would we have enough to do more? Let's solve the workforce problem first before we start, reinventing whatever. Because all these things that are wonderful, great ideas are just ideas if you have no staff to support the idea. So, your strategic plan and everything else is just a bunch of words at the moment until there are people to implement it. And that's the problem that we have to solve.
And OPWDD acknowledges that staffing is of concern, and we have increased, we have used ARPA funds towards that end. I think I spoke about a program a pilot program where we are working with various entities to increase the DSP numbers. We have also partnered with a number of educational program institutes and universities to bolster those numbers. These are legitimate concerns that you're bringing up, and OPWDD is trying to best address them by increasing educational opportunities and increasing outreach to individuals who'd be interested in this sort of work.
Just to kind of put in a provider input from a large and probably one of the older providers. We historically have had both supportive and supervised, and originally started with supportive, which is less than 24 hours. The difference, honestly, it is just supervised is 24-hour staff on site. Supportive is less than 24-hour support on site. And we have moved people from ICF to supervised IRA to supportive IRA and back the other way as needed. The criteria, yeah, Ellie, I guess there is no standardized criteria. One of the things that we absolutely look at first and foremost are health and safety needs. So is the person able to handle emergency situations? Can they evacuate in case of an emergency independently if staff is not there? Can they manage their health needs with minimal staff support? Are they able to prepare simple meals? Can they, do food shopping with minimal support? So it's, it's the difference of having 24-hour staff available. And everybody has said, and Margaret, you're absolutely right. It's going from a very high level of support with 24-hour staffing to maybe 10 hours a week of staffing. And that's just a number, a hypothetical number. It's not, the actual hard number of hours that may be provided.
Yeah, no, we could go on forever. I know AHRC does a good job. That's not my point. When the person, and I know AHRC is responsible enough to have the bed ready back when it doesn't work. Because I know Richard has, there are many stories out there of failed, of going in, 9 months later and finding the room full of bed bugs and all that stuff. But that, the other half of the problem is that the beds that are open are dried up because they're only permitted to be filled by inappropriate people per OPW's urgent needs list. And that isn't exactly, who fits into the open bed. So we could go on forever. And this is not, Sam's problem. She's just she's just taking the wrath. But it's very frustrating that the whole picture is never looked at, only, fixing little pieces of it. It's just, I will be dead before all of this is resolved.
We're a huge system. It's really hard. I think there is a lot of merit to supportive, and I think there's a lot of merit to 24 hours. It's just a matter of balancing it out, figuring out where it's needed.
I know I missed a lot of this conversation. I apologize. I had to get my son off. The thing I wanted to say is that to me, it all comes back to this definition of least restrictive. I think that it's very arbitrary. I think it's interpreted differently. As I said, the last time we were reviewing the 504 plan, for my son's whole educational life, least restrictive for him was a group of peers with the same level of disability, the same support needs, which was very high. And he went from 5 years old to 22 years old in that classroom of 6 people, 3 teachers, 2 paras, to being cast into the adult world where the idea of restrictive was completely different. So to me, that's a big part of it. You can do all the surveys and all the parents' feedback and all that, but we have to come up with what least restrictive means, and also what restrictive means just in general. I don't think we're going to move forward if we don't have that. That's my personal opinion.
Thanks, Jackie. Jackie, did you need to do your?
I'm good now. I can go whenever.
Okay.
He's gone.
Okay. This committee always generates such good discussions. Then we shall move on to Richard.
Oh, boy. Let me just finish this text. This Kathy, you and I have this meeting with Delia Tucker's monthly meeting for executive directors and others. So, oh, it's recording what I'm saying. That's not good. So anyway. Okay, I'm back. So what I'd like to do, besides continue the conversation about supportive, let me just get my last thought on that is, I think everyone's agreed that people could live in a supportive setting, but what hasn't been there, and I think it's starting to get there, is the appropriate supports. And that doesn't come from the local DDRO, that comes from rate setting and division of budget. And that's where things have been stuck. You just don't move someone from supervised into supportive and just you drop off and what it relied on, those people have been successful, is you have the bigger agencies who could afford to upfront the cash that's not funded by OPW or DOH or Division of Budget. And you just put the staff in there that are needed. You could afford to do that. And you can't do that anymore. But I think the initiative that Sam was talking about allows more flexibility. I'm not sure how many people actually applied for it, but it's something we have to continue to support as, you know, under the heading of person-centered. Whatever they need, they should receive. And there has been an acknowledgement finally that people have to go back to supervise because they're getting elderly, their health needs and so forth. And OPW has been allowing that in the last few years, where for many years they wouldn't allow that, wouldn't even think of it. So that said, I'd like to just go over since we're getting into lobby day season and budget being developed, let me just go into that schedule and those notes. I guess the first part, most important, is most of the agencies and the council sent out a letter to providers and who could then give it to the families. And this is the draft letter to the governor saying, here's what we need in this year's budget. And we're asking agency people and families to give that to the local legislator and ask them to send the letter to the governor. The goal is to get it into the executive budget, which comes out mid-January. If we get a COLA and a DSP wage enhancement in the governor's budget, it most likely will stay there. Usually we end up fighting for it after the fact when the governor's budget is out. So this year we're pushing for a 3.2% COLA and a $4,000 per DSP wage enhancement to go into the budget. And therefore, it'll probably end up staying there. So I know the letters have been coming in to the legislators. That's what they report, and we'll trust that they are passing it on to the governor. So the state of message is January 9th. Hopefully, we always look to see, did she mention anything about the IDD world? Hopefully this year she will. And we're expecting the governor's budget to be out around January 16th. Sometimes it comes out immediately after the state of the state, and other times it comes out later. But we'll keep an eye on that. So, Kathy, I don't know if you can send that letter out again. It's a draft letter composed by the associations, but it's draft, so families or others can amend it, but keeping in the principal 3.2% and the $4,000 wage enhancement. And then you can play with it any which way you want. So the first rally back in November up at the War Room in Albany was very well attended, very active, and very loud. And that was a kickoff for the lobbying season. And the goal this year of all the associations is to have continual presence in Albany. So different regions have been assigned dates to organize their people to be in Albany. And I'll go through them, but then on the other side, there's a push to have people meet their legislators in the local offices. So Kathy's going to organize all that for Manhattan. I'm not sure the details of the organization, but I know the councils are planning to do local visits. The benefit there is if you visit a legislator in a local office and then the next day you're walking down the aisle and at the supermarket and here comes the legislator and he sees you and goes, oh God, there's Ellie. And what did she ask me for? I better be ready to respond. Right, Ellie? That happen all the time? Yes, okay. That's why it's important to go to the local legislators. The other thing that we're focusing on this year, in past years, the associations, and especially IAC, was we would organize the visits based on what service programs were in that legislator's district. So a certain legislator had, AHRC and ADAPT and Esperanza in their district. We would make sure staff from those agencies were visiting that legislator. This year, we're kind of switching it. We're going to make sure there's a constituent in that legislator's district. So when we have people register for our lobby days, we're going to ask for zip codes of where the person lives, as well as where the programs are. So we've learned through time that having a constituent, and especially a family member in that legislator's district in that meeting, carries a lot of weight. I remember last year, I was in a meeting for someone who, legislator who was part of the health committee and was very interested in early intervention. And one of the Manhattan parents spoke up, and I think won him over and made a major impact. The 11% increase in early intervention didn't get passed, but that was miscommunication between the governor's office and the legislature. And I think this year has a much better chance. So here are some of the important dates. I believe the 5 boroughs are planning a 5-borough breakfast, an event. And right now it's March 1st, Kathy.
Yeah, Richard, you're taking my announcements, but yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Listen, I go to all the council meetings. I can bring you all the news.
Yes, March 1st.
Okay. New York City's day in Albany is going to be March 4th. The details of that haven't been worked out yet. I think first week of January we're sending out registration, but New York City Lobby Day is March 4th. The Hudson Valley is going to be February 26th. Westchester is March 11th. Long Island is March 18th. There's going to be another major rally associations on March 25th. And the other regions also have dates like Western New York and so forth, but I didn't bring them along. So that's what's going on there. The New York City budget, I assume there's no one from New York City Department at this meeting, but as far as we know that the mayor did announce a 5% cut, across the board cut, and then there'll be another one in January, another one in April, if everything continues as it is. And that 5% cut includes education. The only thing public they put out there is, well, they're going to eliminate, they're going to do that by eliminating unfilled positions at the DOE, and will not include any staff in the classrooms. There's some disagreement of what that means, but the details haven't been released. And I know in the preschool world in New York City, there are currently over 1,000 children who've been evaluated and recommended for preschool special ed who are sitting at home because there's not enough seats, because there's not enough staff, not enough teachers to fill those classrooms. And adding to that crisis, if you remember, there was the Early Childhood Enhancement Program, which added hours to the day, and increased salaries of early childhood, including the 4410 preschool teachers. And that was a nice thought, and the money went out there, but now COVID money's dried up and the city doesn't know how to replace it. They must have been hoping the state would come up with the money and the feds would come up with the money. But right now, that's not happening. There is a group called Emergency Coalition to Save Education Programs for New York City. Number of people, a wide variety of organizations are involved in that. Chris Trieber from IAC is a big player in that group, so we get regular updates on how it's going. So we'll keep you up to date as that progresses. But finding the amount of money that's needed to save those hours, because if all of a sudden you're cutting that extra hour and a half off the day, that throws a big monkey wrench into the family life. So now there's more, there's an extra hour and 20 minutes that were added. So if you cut that, it's not good for the children, it's not good for the families. And if you have to cut teacher salaries, you imagine what that's going to do to our teachers. They'll all run to the Board of Ed where they're still paying a lot more. So that said, yesterday was the Commissioners Provider Association meeting. Winnie Schiff was there. Winnie's executive director at IHC. I wasn't there, but I got the notes from it and I just sent it out to our mailing list. So Kathy, you probably got it. Ellie, did you get it? Okay, good. So I'll just give the highlights. I don't know the details, but there's more to be discussed. What the commissioner did acknowledge, which was nice, that this is the advocacy season. And she said, now is the time to not to take our foot off the gas. In other words, she appreciates our efforts that go full force in advocating for our people and advocating for our budget. So the commissioner is aware and is willing to do what she can do. On the budget, they have been working with a big firm to create a different rate methodology for the OPW programs. That will be out soon. They have decided that they're going to be using the cost data from the 21-22 fiscal year, and outside New York City, the 21 fiscal year. One of the ongoing issues at our residential programs, and it's one of the HCBS settings rules. When you asked that before, one of the settings rules is everybody has a right to have a lock on their bedroom door and also keys to the front door and access to food whenever they want it. But on the key issue, the Division of Quality and Assurance Improvement has been checking that when they visit the homes to see who has a lock and who doesn't. And the cost of this is not negligible. OPW is going to provide a one-time payment of $280.18 per lock for the purchase and installation of locks on the bedroom doors. They did this calculation based on the residential capacity and then discounting by 25% to account for people who have double occupancy bedrooms. And of course, the provider is going to have to sign an attestation saying they're complying with all the requirements of the lock on the door, and you'll return any unused funds. It's a lot of detail to keep track of, but it is in response to the cost of putting locks on all the doors. On the family reimbursement survey, I have to get more details from Winnie about this, because there were only, the survey was sent to 173 providers. Only 46 responded by the deadline of October 31st. The big categories where people made negative comments were the timeliness of the reimbursement, care manager duties and understanding, increase in provider workload. The clinical justification was a hot issue for people. Now, I will say yesterday at another council meeting, the issue of clinical justification came up. And I believe the information that was shared was wrong. Okay, so we're checking. Let's see. Also, in that survey on the family support reimbursement, big complaints about the allowable or excluded items. That there's an excluded items that you're not supposed to purchase with the family support reimbursement funds. So the big complaints were the top 5 non-allowable that people complained about, of course, were the incontinence diapers, mobility and strollers and bikes, mattresses, tracking, monitoring devices, and replacement of non-Medicaid items. So I've heard this at every council meeting, and it's probably including this one, that not allowing the purchase of adult diapers because you can't purchase them by Medicaid, or the Medicaid ones are no good. That's a very loud complaint, and the notes that I have don't reflect that they're willing to back off, but we'll keep pushing on that. And then, as was mentioned before, OPW has signed a corrective action plan for the HCBS settings. You know, CMS came around and visited different residential settings, and there were a number of negative areas. OPW has developed a corrective action plan. There is going to be training on this by OPW, and in the email I just sent out, it does have a PowerPoint of that. So, you know, Cassie, if you want to share that later, you can. And then there's Leslie Fold, who was the Deputy Commissioner of DQI and is now a consultant. She's going to lead a project on timely investigations and bringing that up to speed. So I think that's all I have to share for now. If there's anything I forgot, just ask.
Thanks, Richard. Any questions for Richard?
Was it 280 per lock or 218?
218, I'm sorry, what are you referring to?
The locks for the doors, 218.80 or 2?
Oh, the locks for doors, 280, 280,
Okay.
and 18 cents
I
per lock.
inverted it, okay.
So agencies will be reimbursed for that, or will be given money for that, and then they'll return what's not used. But it does recognize that
It actually costs more.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Richard. Moving on to committee reports. Jackie, Manhattan Family Support Services Advisory.
Good morning, everybody. Excuse me. So Mary and I are continuing what we always do, which is sending to our families notice of advocacy opportunities, as well as the many OPWDD surveys. I'm waiting for the survey on the surveys. Sorry, that's just my one sarcastic remark for the day. Upcoming meetings on January 25th, we are going to be hosting a presentation by ADAPT on home modification and housing assistance. And we are actually going to be doing this in conjunction with the other Borough Family Support Advisory Council. So far we have commitments from Staten Island, the Bronx, and Brooklyn, and Queens is to come. And we thought that made a lot of sense because everybody has the same contract and we'll reach more people that way. Then after that, we are going to be hosting a guardianship presentation. We're going to do it the same way we did it a couple of years ago, which is the first meeting. There'll be a part 1 and part 2. The first meeting will be an overview of guardianship, and the second meeting will be for those people who want to start the process, kind of a page by page, smaller group where they can ask questions and get information that is helpful for them. And that's going to be done by AHRC. And that is it.
Thanks, Jackie. Transition, Andrew?
I just put some info in the chat. Last month we had a really awesome presentation, or actually this month, sorry, last week, we had a great presentation from Supported Decision Making New York, and there's a recording posted on the YouTube channel you can check out if you weren't able to make it. And then our next meeting is going to be February. That will be our annual Manhattan Adult Services meet and greet, where we're going to have a variety of organizations providing different programs and services for adults with IDD, particularly during the phase of life they're transitioning out of the school system into adult services. Those organizations are all going to be doing brief presentations on a Zoom. We have a lot of RSVPs for organizations that will be presenting, but if you're here from organization and you've not RSVP'd, but you'd like to, please just shoot me an email. I put my email in the chat and I can get you all the RSVP info. If you're planning to present but have not RSVP'd, Friday this week is a hard deadline. We really need to get the event info, so please RSVP by Friday.
Thanks, Andrew. Family and Provider Information Committee, Wendy?
Hi, so our next meeting, we meet every other month, so our next meeting is January 10th. And that'll be on advocacy and specifically on, writing justifications, both for on the professional and family level for resources. Things like family reimbursement have been asking for more and more justifications for things. Goods and services requested. And so it's a meeting that's really geared towards discussing what the state and other provider agencies are looking for in these types of justifications and how to advocate for the services that your child needs. So that'll be January 10th from 10 a.m. to 12, and it'll be using the same link as our meeting in November, and an email will be going out soon with all that information.
Thanks, Wendy. And just a general overview announcement. Our council website, manhattanddcouncil.org, has all of the links and the schedules of not only the council meetings, but upcoming committee meetings as well. So great resource to go and check out. Wendy, you had something else?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I forgot to add, we will be looking into updating the Family Support Services Directory. Yesenia Estrella has been gracious enough to volunteer to do that for us this year. So please keep an eye out for an email from her or other members of the Manhattan DD Council requesting updates on that information. You could do sort of a preemptive strike if you'd like and just email us with the subject line Family Support Services Directory update. But that will be starting in the next, I would say, week or two. So please keep an eye out. We want to make sure that all these wonderful services are listed in our Family Support Services Directory so that we may get that out to families. Free promotion, folks.
Thanks for that plug, Wendy. Also on general council updates, we are going to be hopefully having another in-person family support resource fair late spring, early summer. So we keep your eyes and ears open for that. We're looking probably for end of May, early June for that. So we'll begin planning that very shortly. Also, as Richard stole my thunder, the 5 borough councils are once again joining together to do a virtual legislative event. It's tough to call legislative breakfast when it's virtual. I guess it's bring your own bagels and coffee. But that will be on Friday, March 1st. So we're just beginning to plan that out and sketch that out. Also, our next meeting, we are going to try to do a hybrid meeting. And so our next meeting will be January 16th. And we have secured space at Synergia at 2082 Lexington Avenue. More details to follow shortly on that, but it'll be same time, 10 to 12, and it will be hybrid. So love to see people in person there, and, you know, start to get that together. It's been a long time, going on 4 years now. And we will never, just to reassure people, there is no intention of ever doing away with at least some virtual. We absolutely have realized the benefit of that. And then you add on to the fact that these meetings are recorded and then posted on our website. So the information is so much more readily available for that. And I think I got all the other general announcements but going on with council. Anybody have anything else?